The evening light faded through the cafe windows, painting the walls in shades of gold and soft orange. As Emma wiped down the last table of her shift, she was only 22. Yet her face often carried the tiredness of someone twice her age. Every day felt like the same loop. Wake up early, help her sick mother get ready, take 2 buses to the small cafe downtown, work non-stop until her legs ached, then head back home to cook dinner and watch over her mother. Life had become a mix of exhaustion and quiet strength, but Emma never complained. She believed that one day things would change. The cafe was cozy but not fancy. The smell of roasted coffee beans mixed with the sweet scent of pastries. Customers came and went, some kind, some rude, some too busy even to look her in the eye. Emma had learned to smile through everything. Her co-workers often admired her patience. Though most of them didn't know what she was really going through, her mother, Lily, had fallen sick months ago, and medical bills kept piling up. Their landlord had already given them a warning for late rent. Still, Emma refused to give up hope. She told her mother every night, "Everything will be fine, Mom. I'll fix this." Even when she herself wasn't sure how. That night, the cafe was busier than usual. Rain poured outside, making the streets glisten under the streetlights. The sound of the raindrops tapping on the window somehow gave her peace. Emma moved quickly between tables, taking orders, serving plates, and cleaning up spills. Her uniform was slightly faded, and her shoes were worn out, but her heart was full of quiet determination. She knew she couldn't afford to lose this job. The cafe's owner, Mrs. Grant, was strict but fair. She had a soft spot for Emma because of her hard work. Still, one mistake could mean losing hours, and hours meant less money for her mother's medicine. Sometimes, when she looked at the customers sitting with their friends or families, laughing, she felt a tiny ache in her chest. She missed having that sense of ease, that comfort. Her mother used to tell her stories of a time when life was easier, before her father left them without saying goodbye. Emma had been only 4 at the time. She barely remembered his face, only the warmth of a man who used to call her "my little sunshine," but that memory had faded into a blur. All she had left was a photograph her mother kept hidden in a drawer. As the clock ticked closer to closing time, the bell above the cafe door rang again. Emma sighed softly, hoping it wasn't another big order. Her back ached and her feet burned, but she quickly straightened her posture and smiled, welcoming the new customer. It was an old habit. No matter how tired she was, she always greeted every guest kindly. It was part of what made her so well-liked among regulars. The customer this time was different, though. He wore an expensive suit, the kind Emma only saw in magazines. His watch gleamed, and his shoes looked polished enough to reflect light. The man didn't look around much. He simply took a seat near the window, looking thoughtful. He didn't seem arrogant, just distant, like someone lost in memories. Emma brought him a menu and asked politely what he'd like. He smiled faintly and ordered a cup of coffee. Black. She nodded and went to prepare it, noticing how his eyes kept drifting toward the rain, as if he was waiting for something, or someone. While waiting for the coffee to brew, Emma looked around the cafe, noticing how the lights flickered softly, the quiet music played in the background, and for a moment, she imagined herself somewhere else, maybe running her own small cafe one day. Her dream was to build something that would make her mother proud. She had even written it down in a small notebook she kept in her apron pocket. "Someday, I'll own a cafe called Lily's Corner, named after her mother." When she brought the coffee to the man, he thanked her with a polite nod. His voice was deep but calm, and his eyes looked kind yet sad. She couldn't help but wonder what kind of life he lived. He didn't seem like the usual businessman. There was something heavy about him, like he carried a story he didn't want to tell. Emma smiled gently and said, "Enjoy your coffee, sir," then turned away to serve another table. As she worked, she kept glancing at him, not out of curiosity but because there was something about his presence that filled the air with mystery. He sat there for a long while, sipping his coffee slowly, staring out the window as if lost in another time. When he finally stood up to leave, he placed a few bills under the cup, more than enough to cover the cost, and quietly walked out. The bell above the door chimed softly behind him. Emma waited for a moment before going to clean his table. The rain had stopped, and the streets outside were shining like glass. She gathered the cup and plate, humming to herself, completely unaware that something left behind on that table would soon change her life forever. That night, as she finished her shift and hung up her apron, she felt that same quiet mix of tiredness and hope. She didn't know it yet, but fate had just walked through that cafe door, ordered a cup of coffee, and left behind a golden clue to her past. For now, she was just a poor waitress trying to survive another day, unaware that tomorrow would begin the story that would rewrite everything she thought she knew about her life, her mother, and the father she never met. The next evening came. With a cold wind blowing through the streets, the cafe was warm and glowing, lights reflecting softly on the glass windows as people came in to escape the chilly night. Emma had tied her hair neatly and put on her apron, trying her best to look fresh. Even though she hadn't slept much, her mother's cough had kept her awake for most of the night. But Emma never let exhaustion show on her face. She knew that every smile she gave a customer could mean another small tip, another few coins toward her mother's medicine. The cafe was half full when the door opened and a tall man stepped inside. The bell above the door gave a sharp little ring, making a few customers turn to look. Emma noticed him right away. He wasn't like the usual people who came here. He looked important, dressed in a dark gray suit that fit perfectly. His shoes gleamed like polished glass, and the air around him carried a quiet kind of power. He wasn't young, maybe in his early 50s, but his posture was straight. His eyes sharp yet tired, as if they had seen too much of the world. Emma quickly approached him with her warm, polite smile. "Good evening, sir. Table for one?" she asked softly. He nodded without a word and followed her to a quiet corner near the window. He sat down, glancing outside at the rainy street before resting his hands on the table. For a moment, he didn't even look at the menu. He seemed lost in his thoughts. The rain was falling harder now, tiny drops tapping rhythmically against the glass. Emma brought him the menu and said gently, "Take your time, sir." He finally looked up at her, and for a brief second, their eyes met. His eyes were gray cold, yet strangely full of sadness. He gave a small nod and said, "Just a black coffee, please." His voice was calm but carried a deep weight, the kind of tone that made you feel there was more behind it. As Emma walked back to the counter, she felt something odd. She didn't know why, but there was something about that man that made her heart uneasy. Not in a bad way, just curious. He looked like someone who had everything yet nothing at all. She whispered to herself, "He must be from another world." While preparing the coffee carefully, making sure it was perfect, the cafe was busy that night, waiters rushing from one table to another, laughter mixing with the sound of clinking cups. Yet Emma's attention kept drifting toward that one man. He hadn't moved much. He just sat there, staring out at the rain. His hand occasionally brushed against something on his wrist. A shiny gold bracelet that caught the light every time he moved. Emma noticed it for a second but didn't think much of it. When she served him the coffee, he thanked her with a soft smile. It was the first time she saw warmth on his face. "It's been years since I came to a small place like this," he said quietly, looking around. "It feels peaceful." Emma smiled politely. "We're happy to have you here, sir," she replied. He nodded but didn't speak again. He lifted his cup slowly, inhaled the aroma, and took a small sip. As she walked away, she heard one of her co-workers whisper to another, "Do you know who that is? That's Adrian Collins, the billionaire. He owns half the city's companies." Emma's eyes widened slightly. She had heard that name before. Adrian Collins, one of the richest and most respected businessmen, known for his intelligence and power. But what was he doing in a small cafe like this? Surely, a man like him had fancy restaurants and private chefs. The thought stayed in her mind as she continued her work. Meanwhile, Adrian sat quietly, staring into his cup. He wasn't here for the coffee. Not really. He had driven past this little cafe earlier that day and felt an odd pull. Something familiar he couldn't explain. The smell of coffee, the sound of laughter. It reminded him of a simpler time, long before his life became all about meetings, deals, and money. His mind wandered back to a woman's smile, a name he hadn't spoken in years. Lily. Emma noticed that his expression changed every now and then. Like he was fighting old memories. Her curiosity grew stronger. Who was this man behind the suit and the fame? Why did his eyes look so full of regret? But she reminded herself that it wasn't her place to ask. She was just a waitress, and he was a customer. Still, Something deep inside her told her this meeting wasn't ordinary. A few minutes later, Adrian received a phone call. His tone turned sharp, serious. He spoke about business, numbers, and meetings, but his eyes drifted toward the window again and again. When the call ended, he sighed heavily and rubbed his temples. He looked older, more tired than before. The cafe began to quiet down as the night grew darker. Emma started cleaning nearby tables, occasionally glancing at him, wondering if he would order anything else. But soon, he stood up, reached into his wallet, and placed some bills under the saucer. "Keep the change," he said softly. His smile was polite but distant. "Thank you for the coffee." Emma nodded and wished him a good night. Watching as he walked toward the door, the bell rang again, and the billionaire disappeared into the rain. She returned to his table, collecting the cup and plate. Her eyes caught a faint glimmer near the napkin holder. Something shiny rested on the edge of the table. For a moment, she thought it was a coin, but when she picked it up, her breath caught. It was the same gold bracelet she had noticed on his wrist earlier, gleaming under the cafe lights. She turned it in her hands, admiring the craftsmanship. It was beautiful, elegant, clearly expensive. But then she saw the small engraved letters on the inner side. Her heart skipped a beat. She blinked twice to make sure she wasn't seeing wrong. The name engraved on the bracelet read, Lily Harper. Her hands began to tremble, and the sound of rain outside faded into silence. That was her mother's name, the exact same spelling. For a few seconds, she just stood there frozen, staring at it, feeling her heartbeat quicken. Why would a billionaire have a bracelet with her mother's name engraved on it? That question burned in her mind, and in that moment, Emma had no idea that this small discovery was about to open a door to a past full of secrets, love, and loss. One that would change her life forever. Emma stood near the table, the golden bracelet trembling slightly in her hands. The cafe lights reflected softly off its smooth surface, making the engraved letters sparkle. Lily Harper. She read the name again and again, her heart racing faster each time. That was her mother's name, her mother who was lying sick at home, her mother who never mentioned anything about knowing someone rich or owning something so expensive. Emma's breath caught in her throat, her fingers tightening around the bracelet as questions flooded her mind. For a few seconds, she thought maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe someone else shared her mother's name. It was possible, wasn't it? But deep inside, something told her this wasn't random. There was a strange pull, a connection she couldn't explain. She turned to her manager, Mrs. Grant, who was counting the day's earnings at the counter. "Ma'am," Emma said softly, trying to keep her voice calm. "One of the customers left this behind." She handed over the bracelet carefully. Mrs. Grant's eyes widened. "Oh my, this looks expensive," she said, taking it gently. "Whose is it?" "The man who sat by the window," Emma replied. "The one who came in about half an hour ago." Mrs. Grant frowned thoughtfully. "That rich-looking gentleman? Well, don't worry, Emma. I'll keep it safe in the lost and found. If he comes back, I'll give it to him." Emma nodded, but her eyes lingered on the bracelet for a moment longer before she turned away. Something inside her felt unsettled. She couldn't stop thinking about it. The engraving kept flashing in her mind like a whisper from the past. After the cafe closed, Emma helped with the final cleanup, but her thoughts weren't in the room. They were miles away, tangled between fear and curiosity. When she finally clocked out, she stepped into the cold night, pulling her jacket tightly around her. The streets were quiet, the air smelled like rain. She took the bus home, her reflection in the window staring back at her, pale and lost in thought. By the time she reached home, it was late. Their small apartment looked dim and tired. The kind of place that had seen too many struggles. Her mother, Lily, was sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, coughing softly. When she saw Emma, she smiled weakly. "You're late again, sweetheart? Long day?" Emma forced a smile and nodded, setting her bag down. "Yes, Mom. The cafe was busy," she said. Her mother nodded slowly. "You must be tired. Come, sit. I made some soup." As Emma sat beside her, she hesitated. She wanted to ask about the bracelet right away, but something held her back. What if it upset her mother? What if it opened an old wound? Still, the thought wouldn't leave her mind. After a few moments of silence, she finally spoke. Mom, can I ask you something? Lily looked at her gently. Of course, dear. What is it? Emma took a deep breath. Today at work, a man came in, a rich man, and he left behind a bracelet. It had a name engraved inside your name. Her mother froze for a second. The spoon in her hand stopped halfway. My name, she whispered. Her voice trembled slightly. What exactly did it say? Lily Harper, Emma replied softly, watching her mother's reaction carefully. Lily's eyes filled with emotion, her lips trembling. What kind of bracelet was it? It was gold, beautiful and old-looking. The letters were small but clear, Emma explained. Do you know anything about it? Lily didn't answer right away. Her hands began to shake as she pressed them against her mouth. Tears welled up in her eyes before she could stop them. Emma leaned forward, worried. Mom, what's wrong? Do you know whose it is? After a long silence, Lily finally spoke, her voice low and broken. That bracelet. It used to be mine. Emma's eyes widened. Yours? But how? You never had anything like that. Lily took a deep breath, her eyes distant. It was many years ago, before you were born. I worked for a wealthy family. They were kind to me. Or at least, one of them was, she said, her voice trembling as she remembered. The man I worked for, he was gentle, respectful, not like others. His name was Adrian Collins. Emma froze, the name sending a chill down her spine. Adrian Collins? She repeated. Mom, that's the man who came to the cafe today. Lily gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. Are you sure? Emma nodded quickly. Yes, I heard my coworker say his name. He's a billionaire now. Lily covered her mouth, whispering, Oh my God. She looked away, tears falling down her cheeks. I never thought I'd hear that name again. Emma sat in silence, unsure of what to say. Mom, who was he to you? Lily hesitated for a long moment, then finally said, He was the man I loved. Her voice cracked. We met when I worked for his family, but his parents never approved of me. They thought I was beneath them. I left when things became unbearable. Emma's chest tightened. Did he know you were pregnant with me? Lily shook her head, tears streaming freely now. No, I never told him. I thought it was best to disappear. I wanted to protect you. I thought he'd moved on with his life. Emma's mind spun with confusion and shock. Then that bracelet. He gave it to me before everything fell apart, Lily said softly. He told me it would always remind me of him. I lost it years ago. I never knew what happened to it. Emma felt her throat tighten. The bracelet wasn't just a forgotten item. It was a piece of their past, a link between her mother and the man she had served coffee to just hours ago. She felt like fate had played a strange trick, leading their paths to cross again after all these years. That night, long after her mother had fallen asleep, Emma sat awake, staring out the window at the quiet city lights. The image of the bracelet kept replaying in her mind, the way it gleamed under the cafe lights, the name engraved so beautifully. She couldn't shake the feeling that destiny was trying to tell her something. Tomorrow, she knew she would see him again. The billionaire would come back for his lost bracelet, and when he did, Emma would be ready. Not just to return it, but to uncover the truth behind everything her mother had just revealed. She didn't know it yet, but the next meeting would change her life forever. The next morning arrived quietly, the soft light of dawn slipping through the thin curtains of their small apartment. Emma barely slept that night. The bracelet, her mother's tears, and the name Adrian Collins kept running through her mind like a movie she couldn't turn off. She kept hearing her mother's trembling voice saying, He was the man I loved, and wondering how it was possible that the same man had walked into her cafe after so many years. When Emma woke up, she found her mother sitting by the window, holding a cup of tea, staring outside as if lost in another world. Her eyes looked puffy from crying, but there was also something else in them, something like longing. Emma quietly sat beside her and said gently, Mom, are you okay? Lily smiled weakly and nodded. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired. I didn't sleep much. Emma hesitated before speaking. Mom, I keep thinking about what you told me last night, About that man. Adrian Collins? I can't believe he was really the one who came to the cafe. It feels like fate brought him there. Lily sighed deeply. Maybe it did, or maybe it's just life reminding me of what I lost, she whispered. Her voice was calm but filled with pain. You see, Emma, I never told you everything. You deserve to know the truth. Emma turned to her, her heart beating fast. Then please, Mom, tell me everything. I want to understand. Lily took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly as she placed the cup down. It was many years ago. I was only 20 then. My family was poor, and I worked as a housekeeper in a big mansion outside the city. That house belonged to the Collins family, one of the wealthiest families in town. Emma listened quietly, her eyes fixed on her mother's face. Lily continued, her gaze distant as she spoke. Mr. Collins was strict but fair, and his son, Adrian, had just returned from studying abroad. He was polite, humble, and nothing like the arrogant rich people I'd met before. He used to sit in the garden and talk to me while I worked. He'd ask about my dreams, my family. He treated me like an equal, not a servant. A small, nostalgic smile appeared on her mother's face. We became friends first. Then one day, something changed. He confessed that he loved me. I was scared. I thought it was wrong. A maid and a rich man. But his love felt real. He promised me that class or money didn't matter to him. For a while, I believed it. We were happy. Emma felt her throat tighten as she imagined her mother young and in love. So what happened, Mom? Lily's smile faded, replaced by sadness. His parents found out. They were furious. They said I was trying to trap him for his money. They humiliated me in front of everyone. I still remember his mother's words. She said I was a stain on their family name. Adrian tried to defend me, but they gave him a choice. Family or me? Emma's chest ached. What did he choose? She asked softly, afraid to hear the answer. Lily looked down, her eyes glistening. He wanted to choose me, but his father threatened to cut him off completely. He begged me to wait, said he'd make things right, but I couldn't bear the pain anymore. I left before he could find me. I was already pregnant with you, but I didn't tell him. I thought he'd move on and forget. I didn't want you to grow up in a world that would look down on you. Emma felt tears forming in her eyes. Mom, you went through all that alone? Her mother nodded. Yes, but I had you, and that was enough. When you were born, I promised myself I'd never let you face the cruelty I did. There was silence for a moment, only the ticking of the clock and the soft hum of the morning. Then Emma whispered, Do you think he ever tried to find you? Lily's eyes filled with sadness again. Sometimes I wondered that too. I used to dream that one day he'd come knocking on the door, but as years passed, I accepted that he was gone for good. She took a shaky breath. And that bracelet, when I saw it, I felt like time had stopped. I never thought I'd see it again. Emma reached for her mother's hand and held it tightly. Maybe this is a sign, Mom. Maybe life is giving you both a second chance. Lily looked at her daughter lovingly. Oh, my sweet girl. Sometimes the past is better left behind. I don't want you to get hurt because of my mistakes. But Mom, Emma said firmly, what if this isn't a mistake? What if there's something more? He came to my cafe. Not by accident. I can feel it. Lily smiled faintly, brushing a tear from Emma's cheek. You always see the good in everything, just like him, she whispered. Later that day, when Emma left for work, her thoughts were heavy. Every sound, every step reminded her of the bracelet. She could almost see her mother's young face in her mind, full of love, pain, and hope. She wondered if Adrian remembered her, or if the bracelet was just a forgotten piece of the past to him. When Emma reached the cafe, she went straight to the manager's office. Mrs. Grant, she said politely, has anyone come for the bracelet yet? Mrs. Grant shook her head. Not yet, dear, but if it's as valuable as it looks, he'll be back soon. Emma nodded quietly and returned to work. Her heart was restless. Half of her wanted him to come, to see his face when he got the bracelet back. The other half was scared of what might happen if he did. As the hours passed, Emma kept glancing toward the door every time the bell rang. But the billionaire didn't return that day. By closing time, she began to wonder if she'd ever see him again. When she got home that evening, her mother was resting, breathing softly. Emma watched her for a long moment, thinking about everything she had learned. Her heart ached for her mother, for the love she lost, for the pain she carried. She walked to the small bedside table where her mother's old photo album sat. She opened it and turned the fragile pages until she stopped at a picture. A young Lily smiling in a garden, next to a tall man with kind eyes. He was holding her hand, and on his wrist, Emma could clearly see it. The same golden bracelet, shining under the sunlight. Tears filled her eyes, and a soft smile curved on her lips. "I'll find him, Mom," she whispered. "I'll find him, and I'll bring the truth back to you." Outside, the city lights glowed faintly, unaware that somewhere between a poor waitress and a billionaire, a story of lost love was slowly finding its way back home. The next morning, the cafe smelled of fresh bread and warm coffee, but Emma's mind was far away. She had been waiting for this moment since the night she found the bracelet. Her heart raced every time the cafe door opened, wondering if it would be him, the billionaire who unknowingly carried her mother's name on his wrist. She kept glancing toward the counter, her hands fidgeting nervously as she wiped the same table over and over again. Mrs. Grant, the cafe manager, noticed her distracted behavior and said kindly, "Emma, dear, you look anxious today. Is something wrong?" Emma forced a smile. "I'm fine, ma'am. Just didn't sleep well," she said softly, trying to sound casual. But deep inside, she knew her life was about to change. She could feel it in her bones. Around noon, the bell above the cafe door rang, and Emma's heart skipped a beat. The tall man in the gray suit walked in again. He looked just as calm and dignified as before, but there was a faint restlessness in his eyes this time. It was Adrian Collins. He looked around briefly, and when his gaze met Emma's, she felt her breath catch. He approached the counter slowly, his voice polite yet urgent. "Excuse me, miss. I believe I left something behind the other day. A bracelet, gold, engraved inside." Emma froze for a second, trying to hide her emotions. "Yes, sir," she said, her voice steady though her heart raced wildly. "We found it after you left. Please wait here. I'll get it." She walked quickly to the manager's office, where Mrs. Grant had kept the bracelet safely in a small box. As she picked it up, her hands trembled slightly. She stared at it one last time, thinking about her mother's tears, her story, and how this small piece of jewelry carried a past that neither of them expected. When she returned to Adrian, he smiled faintly, clearly relieved. "Thank you so much," he said, reaching for it. But Emma didn't hand it over right away. She hesitated, staring at the bracelet, then looked up at him with quiet courage. "Sir, may I ask you something?" He looked slightly surprised but nodded. "Of course." Her voice was soft but steady. "Whose name is engraved on this bracelet?" He blinked, taken aback by the question. "Why do you ask?" "Please, sir," she said earnestly. "I just need to know." Adrian sighed, his expression softening. "It belonged to my late wife," he said after a pause. "Her name was Lily Harper Collins." The world seemed to freeze around Emma. The sounds of the cafe, the chatter, the clinking cups, the music, all faded into silence. She felt her knees go weak, her fingers gripping the box tightly. "Lily Harper Collins?" she repeated under her breath. Adrian noticed the shock on her face, concern flickering in his eyes. "Are you all right, miss?" Emma swallowed hard, her voice trembling now. "Sir, I think there's something you should know." He frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath, her heart pounding. "My mother's name is Lily Harper," she said slowly. "And this bracelet, it was hers years ago." For a long moment, Adrian said nothing. His expression froze, disbelief flashing across his face. "What did you just say?" he asked quietly. Emma nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "My mother. She told me everything last night. She worked for a rich family many years ago. The Collins family. She said she loved a man named Adrian, but had to leave because his parents didn't approve." Adrian's eyes widened, color draining from his face. He reached out, gripping the edge of the counter as if to steady himself. "Lily?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "Your mother? Her name was Lily Harper? She worked in my family's house." Emma nodded again, her eyes glistening. "Yes, And when she saw this bracelet, she said you gave it to her before she left. Adrian's hand shook as he took the bracelet, staring at it like he was seeing a ghost. I thought I lost this years ago, he murmured. I gave it to her as a promise that I would come back for her. But when she disappeared, I searched everywhere. I thought something terrible had happened. Emma felt a lump in her throat. She left because your family forced her to. She didn't want you to lose everything because of her. And she never told you? She was pregnant. Adrian looked up sharply, his eyes wide with shock. Pregnant? Emma nodded slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, she was carrying me. Silence filled the space between them. Adrian's eyes locked onto hers. And in that instant, something inside him broke. Years of confusion, loss, and guilt crashed down at once. His voice was shaky, filled with disbelief and emotion. Are you saying you're my daughter? Emma didn't answer at first, afraid to say the words aloud. But she finally nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. That's what my mother told me. She didn't want to ruin your life, so she disappeared. She raised me alone. Adrian ran a trembling hand through his hair, his expression torn between shock and joy. All these years, I thought she was gone forever, and all this time my daughter. He paused, his voice breaking. My daughter was right here, serving me coffee. Emma couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She looked down, whispering, I didn't even know who you were until last night. When I found the bracelet, I thought it was just fate playing a cruel trick. Adrian stepped closer, his voice soft, filled with emotion. Fate wasn't cruel, Emma. It was kind. It brought me back to you. For the first time, he said her name, and it made her heart ache. She looked up, meeting his eyes. The same gentle gray eyes her mother had described. I need to see her, Adrian said suddenly, his tone urgent. Please, Emma, take me to your mother. Emma hesitated, thinking of her mother's fragile condition. She's not well, sir. She's very weak. I don't care, he said firmly, his eyes glistening. I've waited my whole life for this. I have to see her. I have to tell her how sorry I am. Emma nodded slowly, wiping her tears. All right, come with me, she whispered. As they stepped out of the cafe together, the afternoon sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow on the wet pavement. Emma glanced at Adrian walking beside her. The billionaire who had unknowingly changed her life. The bracelet in his hand gleamed softly, like a bridge between the past and the present. Neither of them spoke as they walked toward the bus stop, both lost in thoughts of what awaited them. A reunion 20 years in the making, and a truth that would finally set them free. The road to Emma's small apartment felt longer than ever. Emma and Adrian walked side by side, both quiet, both lost in their thoughts. The afternoon sun glowed weakly through the clouds, and the city noise seemed distant, almost unreal. Adrian's heart pounded in his chest, every step bringing him closer to the woman he had loved and lost decades ago, while Emma tried to stay calm, afraid of how her mother might react when she saw him again after so many painful years. When they reached the small, old building, Emma hesitated at the door. She doesn't know I'm bringing you, she said softly. I didn't want to scare her. Adrian nodded, his voice low and full of emotion. I understand. I'll be gentle. Emma unlocked the door quietly. The apartment smelled of tea and lavender. Her mother, Lily, was sitting on the couch near the window, wrapped in a light blanket. Her hair had turned gray, her face pale but kind. She looked up when she heard the door open, smiling faintly. Emma, sweetheart, you're home early? She said warmly. Emma's throat tightened. Yes, Mom. I brought someone with me. Before Lily could ask who it was, Adrian stepped into the light. He looked older than the young man she remembered, but his eyes, those soft gray eyes, were the same. For a moment, Lily froze, her hands trembling, the color drained from her face. Adrian? She whispered in disbelief. He took a slow step forward, his voice breaking. Lily? It's really you. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. She covered her mouth with her hand. How did you find me? She whispered, her voice shaking. Adrian smiled weakly, fighting back tears. I didn't. Lily? Your daughter found me. Lily turned to look at Emma, confusion written all over her face. What do you mean? Emma knelt beside her mother, gently holding her hands. Mom, he came to the cafe. I didn't know who he was until I saw your bracelet, the one you lost years ago. He had it. Lily looked between them, still struggling to understand. Her eyes filled with tears. You mean, Adrian still had it? Adrian nodded, stepping closer. I never stopped carrying it, Lily. I thought I'd lost you, but I couldn't throw away the only piece of you I had left. His voice cracked as he continued. I searched for you everywhere. I even went back to the old house where you worked, but your room was empty. No one would tell me where you'd gone. Lily's tears flowed freely now. Your parents sent me away, Adrian. They told me I was ruining your life, that you'd never forgive me if I stayed. I didn't want you to lose your family because of me. Adrian's jaw tightened as guilt filled his heart. They told me you left willingly, that you never wanted to see me again. I was so angry, so broken. I tried to move on, but I never could. Lily shook her head, sobbing softly. I never stopped loving you. I just thought you'd forgotten me. He slowly knelt down beside her, taking her trembling hands in his. How could I forget you, Lily? You were my whole world. Emma stood silently nearby, her heart swelling with emotion. Seeing her mother and father together after all those years felt like watching two halves of a broken heart finally fit again. Lily reached up, touching Adrian's face with her trembling fingers. You've aged, she whispered, smiling faintly through her tears. He laughed softly, a tear rolling down his cheek. So have you, my love, but your eyes, they're the same, still kind, still beautiful. For a moment, time stood still. The years of pain, misunderstanding, and distance faded away as they looked into each other's eyes. It was as if all the years apart melted into one single heartbeat. Emma quietly moved to the kitchen to give them a moment alone. She poured water for her mother, wiping her own tears as she watched from the doorway. She had always dreamed of giving her mother peace. And now, somehow, fate had done it for her. Adrian spoke again, his voice low. Lily, I didn't know about Emma. Lily's expression softened. I wanted to tell you, Adrian. I really did. But when I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. I had no money, nowhere to go. I worked in small places just to raise her. I told her you were a good man, but that life had taken us apart. Adrian turned to look at Emma, his eyes full of emotion. You've raised her so well, Lily. She's brave, kind, just like you. Lily smiled weakly. She's my miracle, Adrian. Everything I ever had left. He reached out, taking Lily's hand in his. Then let me take care of both of you now. Please, let me make things right. I can't change the past, but I can give you both a better future. Lily hesitated, her eyes glistening. It's been so long, Adrian. I don't know if I can start over. He shook his head gently. We don't have to start over, Lily. We just have to start again. Emma watched them, her heart heavy but hopeful. She had grown up watching her mother cry quietly at night, not knowing why. Now she finally understood. Her mother's sadness wasn't just from poverty. It was from love lost and never healed. As the evening sunlight poured into the room, Lily leaned her head against Adrian's shoulder. The silence between them was full of memories, forgiveness, and peace. For the first time in years, her hands stopped trembling. Adrian looked at Emma, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Emma, I owe you everything. If you hadn't found that bracelet, none of this would have happened. Emma smiled through her tears. Maybe it was meant to happen, Dad. The word, Dad, hit Adrian like a wave. His eyes filled again, and he reached for her hand. Say that again, he whispered, almost not believing it. Emma laughed softly, crying and smiling at once. Dad, she repeated, and this time, it felt right. Adrian pulled both of them into an embrace. The mother he had loved, and the daughter he never knew he had. The pain of lost years melted away in that single, heartfelt moment. The family that fate once tore apart was finally together again. Outside, the evening breeze rustled the leaves. The world carried on as if nothing had changed. But inside that small apartment, 3 broken hearts finally began to heal. A golden bracelet lay shining on the table beside them. No longer just a lost ornament, but a symbol of love that had survived time, distance, and destiny itself. The next morning, sunlight softly filtered through the thin curtains of the small apartment. Emma woke up early, her heart still heavy with everything that had happened the night before. She walked quietly to her mother's room and found Lily still sleeping peacefully. Adrian was sitting beside her bed, his head slightly bowed, holding her hand gently as if he was afraid she might disappear again if he let go. Emma stood at the door, watching silently. For a moment, she felt something she had never felt before. The picture of a complete family, something she used to dream about when she was a child, her mother smiling, her father's voice, laughter at dinner. Things she thought would never happen for her. But now, seeing Adrian by her mother's side, that dream didn't feel impossible anymore. When Lily opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was Adrian. She smiled faintly. "I thought last night was a dream," she said softly. Adrian smiled back. "If it was a dream, then I never want to wake up." Emma brought tea for both of them, sitting beside her mother. "Mom, how are you feeling?" Lily took a sip and smiled weakly. "Better than I have in years," she said, then turned to Adrian. "Having you both here makes my heart feel light again." Adrian nodded, his eyes gentle but serious. "Lily, I've been thinking. I can't let you stay here anymore. This place is too small, too cold. You and Emma deserve comfort, safety, and happiness." Lily looked surprised. "Adrian, you don't need to." He interrupted softly. "I do, Lily. I've missed 20 years of your life, of our daughter's life. I can't bring those years back, but I can make sure the next ones are filled with peace." Emma looked between them, hesitant. "Dad, you've already done so much." Adrian shook his head, smiling warmly at her. "Don't stop me now, Emma. I have a lot to make up for." He pulled out his phone and made a quick call. Arranging something quietly, Emma and Lily exchanged curious looks. When he hung up, he said with a grin, "I've got a surprise for both of you, but you'll have to come with me." Lily frowned slightly. "A surprise? You'll see," Adrian said with a wink. "Trust me, you'll like it." A few hours later, a sleek black car arrived outside the apartment. The driver opened the door, and Adrian helped Lily inside carefully. Emma sat beside her, still unsure what to expect. As the car moved through the busy streets, Lily kept glancing at him. "Adrian, where are we going?" He only smiled. "Somewhere that used to be ours and can be again." After nearly half an hour, the car stopped in front of a beautiful old mansion, its walls covered in climbing roses. The air smelled of flowers and nostalgia. Emma's eyes widened in disbelief. "This place? It's huge," she whispered. Lily froze, recognizing it instantly. "Adrian, this is your family home." He nodded slowly, his expression soft. "Ours, Lily. I've kept it all these years. I couldn't sell it. Not after you left. It always reminded me of you." Lily's eyes filled with tears, memories rushing back. Her laughter in the garden, their late-night talks by the fireplace, the promises they made beneath those same roses. "I never thought I'd see this place again," she whispered. Adrian took her hand gently. "Then it's time to change that." They walked through the grand hallway together, dust dancing in the sunlight. Every corner held a memory, both sweet and painful. Adrian led them to a room at the back, where the walls were lined with old photographs. He walked over to a framed picture and picked it up. "This was taken the week before you left," he said softly, showing Lily a photo of her younger self standing beside him, smiling brightly. Emma looked at it with awe. "Mom, you were so beautiful." Lily smiled shyly. "That was a long time ago." Adrian placed the photo back and turned to Emma. "I want you to live here, both of you. This house was meant to be filled with family, laughter, and love, not emptiness." Lily's eyes widened. "Adrian, we can't accept this." He stopped her gently. "You're not accepting a gift, Lily, you're coming home." For a long moment, Lily was silent, overwhelmed by the kindness and emotion in his words. She looked at Emma, who nodded encouragingly. Mom, maybe it's time we stop running from the past. Lily smiled through her tears. Maybe you're right. Adrian's expression softened. Lily, I also have something else for you. He reached into his pocket and took out the same golden bracelet. The one that had brought them all back together. He placed it in her hand. It belongs to you. It always did. Lily stared at it, her fingers tracing the engraving. Lily Harper Collins, she whispered, remembering the night he had given it to her so many years ago. You kept it all this time? He nodded. It was my only reminder of you, my promise that one day I'd find you again. She couldn't hold back her tears anymore. And you did? She said softly. You found me. Adrian smiled. No, Lily. It was our daughter who found both of us. Emma's heart swelled with emotion. She hugged them both tightly. Maybe it was meant to happen like this, she said. Maybe fate just needed time to bring us back together. The three of them stood there in the soft afternoon light, surrounded by the echoes of the past. But this time, there was no sadness, only warmth, forgiveness, and hope. Later, as they sat in the garden, Lily leaned her head on Adrian's shoulder while Emma watched the roses swaying gently in the wind. The mansion, once silent and lonely, was alive again, filled with laughter, memories, and the sound of love finding its way home. For the first time in her life, Emma felt truly complete. She looked at her parents and smiled, knowing that the bracelet she had found didn't just reveal a secret. It reunited a family, healed old wounds, and turned years of pain into something beautiful. And as the sun began to set behind the mansion, painting the sky with shades of gold and pink, Emma whispered to herself, sometimes, fate hides miracles in the smallest things, like a forgotten bracelet. Days passed peacefully after Lily and Emma moved into the mansion. The once quiet house was now full of warmth, laughter, and the aroma of freshly cooked meals. The halls that had stood cold for years now echoed with life again. Emma had started to decorate the rooms, filling them with flowers and bright curtains, while Lily spent her mornings sitting in the garden, enjoying the sunshine. Adrian couldn't stop smiling whenever he saw them together. It was everything he had dreamed of, a family, after so many lonely years. One morning, Adrian was sitting in his study, reading an old album filled with pictures of his youth. He smiled as he turned each page, then stopped at a photo of him and Lily when they were young. He gently touched the image, whispering, "We finally made it, Lily." His eyes filled with tears of gratitude. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Emma was helping her mother prepare breakfast. "Mom, you're glowing these days," she teased playfully. "I think love suits you again." Lily laughed softly, shaking her head. "Oh, stop it, sweetheart. I'm just happy to have you both together. That's all I ever wanted." Emma smiled warmly. "And you deserve every bit of it. Mom, you've struggled enough." They were setting the table when Adrian walked in, dressed neatly in a light blue shirt. "Good morning, my beautiful ladies," he said cheerfully. Lily blushed, pretending to be annoyed. "You haven't changed a bit, Adrian," still full of sweet words. He laughed and kissed her hand gently. "And you still fall for them." They all laughed together. A simple moment that felt like the start of a new life. But later that day, Lily began to feel weak again. Her breathing became heavy, and she held her chest. Emma rushed to her side in panic. "Mom, are you okay?" Lily forced a faint smile. "Just a little tired, honey." Adrian immediately called the family doctor, who arrived within minutes. After checking her, he looked at Adrian seriously. "She's weak, Mr. Collins. Her heart isn't as strong as it used to be. She needs rest and care." Adrian's face turned pale. "She'll be all right, won't she?" The doctor nodded slowly. "If she avoids stress and stays happy, yes." Emma sat by her mother's side, tears filling her eyes. "You're going to be fine, Mom. I promise." Lily reached out, touching Emma's cheek softly. "Don't cry, my dear. I'm not going anywhere. Not when I've just found you both." Adrian stayed close, holding her hand, refusing to leave her side. Over the next few days, he did everything to make her comfortable. He even brought in nurses and made sure her favorite flowers were always beside her bed. One evening, as the three of them sat together in the living room, Lily looked at them both with teary eyes. You know, I used to pray every night for this. Not for money, not for comfort. Just to see you both together, happy, like this. Adrian squeezed her hand. And now your prayer has come true. Lily smiled softly. Yes, it has. She turned to Emma. My sweet girl, you've been my strength all these years. When life was hard, it was your smile that kept me going. Emma tried to hold back tears. Mom, please, don't say things like that. But Lily only smiled faintly. I just want you to remember, Emma, that love is worth every pain, every weight. Look at your father and me. Fate took us apart, but love brought us back. Never stop believing in it. Emma nodded, holding her mother's hand tightly. I promise, Mom. Adrian leaned closer. And I promise I'll never leave you again, Lily. Lily looked at him, her eyes filled with affection. You've already given me everything I ever wanted, Adrian. I can rest peacefully knowing you're both together. He shook his head quickly. Don't talk like that. You'll live a long, happy life with us. But Lily just smiled, as if she knew something they didn't. That night, as the house grew quiet, Emma peeked into her mother's room to check on her. Lily was lying peacefully, holding the golden bracelet in her hand, the one that had brought them all together. Emma kissed her forehead gently, whispering, Good night, Mom, and went to bed. In the early morning, when Adrian went to wake her, Lily looked like she was still asleep, her face calm and full of peace. But when he touched her hand, it was cold, his heart sank, and tears filled his eyes. Lily? He whispered brokenly. No, please, not now. Emma rushed into the room, her heart pounding. Dad? What's wrong? Adrian looked at her with trembling lips. She's gone, Emma. Emma froze, her world crashing down around her. She fell beside her mother, sobbing uncontrollably. No, Mom. Please wake up. You can't leave me, not now. Adrian pulled her close, his own tears falling freely. She's not gone, Emma. She's here. In our hearts, always. The golden bracelet still lay in Lily's hand, shining softly in the morning light. Emma picked it up carefully, holding it close to her chest. It was more than just jewelry now. It was a symbol of their love, of the connection that would never break. Days later, they held a small memorial in the mansion garden. Surrounded by white roses, Adrian stood beside Emma, watching the sunlight touch the flowers. She would have loved this, he whispered. Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. She's watching us, Dad. I can feel it. Adrian placed his arm around her shoulder. She gave us something no one else could, a second chance. Emma smiled weakly. And we'll honor her by living the life she wanted for us. Years later, the mansion was no longer just a house. It became a home filled with love, laughter, and memories. Emma carried on her mother's kindness, helping others, while Adrian devoted his time to charity, giving back to the world in Lily's name. Every morning, Emma would wear the golden bracelet on her wrist, feeling her mother's love with her. And sometimes, when the sunlight hit it just right, she could almost hear Lily's gentle voice whispering, Love always finds its way. The bracelet that once revealed a shocking secret had now become a treasure of love and destiny. It had reunited a family, healed old wounds, and proved that even when time and distance try to break bonds, true love never fades. And so, in the heart of that old mansion, where roses bloomed and laughter echoed once again, the story of a poor waitress and a lost bracelet lived on. A reminder that miracles often hide in the smallest moments, waiting to change lives forever.